ecosystem initiative like we have in Philadelphia. And so I'm not trying at all to put down Philadelphia. I do a lot of my investing in Philadelphia. One of my companies just got accepted to the Dream It Accelerator program that starts tomorrow. So we want to do much more of that in the suburbs. And one of the things I'll also ask is if Kevin would after we're done, give a quick pitch on what Walnut Street Labs is doing, because there's great stuff going on in Westchester, where I'm from. So I'd like everyone to hear about that as well. You want to say? Sure.
Hello, everybody. Having a good evening. Everyone get a drink. So tonight I'm going to talk about spare time startups and basically how to do it, as well as what I like to call the art of data-driven efficiency. These techniques are useful for any startup, but it's particularly valuable for the kind of startups where you have a full-time job or you're raising kids and you're trying to do it on the side, because as you all know, when you have that situation, your resources are very, very limited, so you need to focus how you use them. How many people are in that situation doing a startup on the side? So what's your biggest constraint? Just call it out.
Time.
Money.
Money, okay. You can go ahead. Time, funds, and skills are the three things that I see as the most common barriers for people that are doing this, spare time startup. The main reasons, obviously, is these resources are super valuable. They're used in all sorts of things, and it's a pain in the butt to get by without them. Now, the interesting thing about them, though, is that they're actually interchangeable. If you have funds, you can hire someone to save time. If you have time, you can learn a skill that can help reduce the cost. So there's an interesting dynamic between the three, and it's valuable to keep those in mind. Tonight, I'm going to go through a couple of techniques that will help you optimize your use of these and basically determine if you're going to be able to launch a startup and scale it pretty easily from the get-go. So the first one, and I recommend anyone do this that has an idea, that wants to do a startup. I would even recommend it if you've already started a startup, because it might give you a different perspective on where you're going and what your costs are. It's called pricing in reverse. What you do, the basic formula, is you get the keyword cost per click, and you divide it by 0.015. That's it. That's the beginning. What that tells you right there is it tells you what a conversion ratio to price is going to be. It's going to give you your cost for advertising. For most startups, you're going to need to advertise, you're going to need to scale, you're going to need to go out there and find new customers. This gives you a very base rate for free as to how much that's going to cost per user acquisition. If you look at it, the breakdown is searches per month times click-through ratio times conversion rate times revenue per customer equals searches per month times click-through ratio cost per click. Very complex. Don't worry about it. Just remember, CPC divided by 1.5%. Click. The next, so for this slide, I'm going to talk through an example. I have to read this because I don't remember all the numbers I put up here for this example. This is a sample of doing this live. So say I love kitten care. I think kittens are the most adorable thing in the world, and I want to sell an ebook on kittens and how to care for them. So the easy way to do it is you go to Google AdWords. You get an AdWords account. It's free. You type in kitten care as my search term, because that's how you're going to advertise to people, is based on that search term. You come up with a searches per month, 8,100 searches per month. This is just a sample. Kitten care would probably be more popular than that, actually. So
at least on YouTube.
Yeah, you can say, right? Assume 1% of clicks, so that's 81 clicks a month. 1% is a safe bet. Use that as a foundational number for any testing of any market, because that's actually how it ends up being most of the time. It's maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but 1% is a safe bet. So that's 81 clicks, and it will tell you what the cost per click is. Google just tells you how much the price is for each click. So you multiply that out, and that gives you a base advertising cost per month of $123. Now, you can assume a 1.5% conversion. So you have 1% converting and 1% clicking and 1.5% converting. All right, am I going too fast to write down these notes? Some people take notes. So you multiply that out, and you'll find out how many customers you get. In this case, yes.
Will you share these later?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I think it's Spare me from writing.
Oh, yeah, I'm writing down. Yeah,
So, so we can put these on the meetup site, and we'll also have our Liberty Valley Initiative site that will be ready when
1 month.
1
One
month.
month.
So it'll be
You know what?
it'll be eyesight.
We can put it on I2N in the meantime, too.
So that gets you 1.215 customers per month. That's not very many. So do a little algebra, and to break even, you need to make $102 per ebook. So is this a good idea?
Probably not.
No.
Price your ebook at $1,000.
Exactly. So but this is a very simple exercise. It takes like 15 minutes, literally, to get all this information. You sign up for an AdWords account, and you look up what your common keyword is. That's all it takes, and it's a real simple formula. Like I said, forget all the details. Divided by 1.5%, and you'll get the same number. We can do the math to figure it out or show you. So if it's $102 per ebook, this is a bad idea. Well, let's say I was, or let's say the searches were way, way higher, and so my cost per click is lower, and everything is way cheaper. And let's say it's $3 a book, and it's like, okay, now that's reasonable. Let's go to the next slide. This is when you do the second practice test. And this is, again, all before you take a second to write a single word in your ebook or do anything, just to validate the concept. So this is the guinea pig test. The next step is going to cost you a little money, but not too much money. The good thing about this is that it's relatively cheap, and if you sign up for an AdWords account, most of the time that $100 is deducted because Google will just give you $100. They love it. I like using Facebook personally because there's a little bit more target demographic stuff you can do, but either one works, however you want to do it. And $136 is pretty cheap to determine if you're going to be a millionaire soon. So the $100 is your ad account. The $36 is for the landing page, which is the next step. The whole concept here is that you're testing the entire idea by targeting your key customers through searches, through AdWords, through Facebook, and you're validating that they're actually interested in your product. And if you can validate that, then you can determine all the myriad of other financial data that you need to get a startup going. Snap Pages is a great resource. It allows you to do drag and drop landing pages, so you don't even need to know how to code. It's really simple. It has Google Analytics built in, which is going to be very useful when you're determining who's actually interested in your site, how many people are interested in your site. And then Facebook targeting, like I said, I love because it has way more details. You can dig down and get all sorts of stuff, but it's a little more complex. Track everything. Everything you do, every person you talk to, every card that gets handed to you, track it. Keep track of it. This is how you're going to run your business. Here's an example of how we did this for a product and a company that I literally just launched in December. We started working on it in, I think, August, built it over 2 months, and we made it official as of December. That's the ad we ran on Facebook. It basically just said that, face crunch, changing the face of advertising literally. Spent $100 over a course of a week, and we built a no-info landing page. I'll talk about that in a second. We had 19,000 reach, 77,000 impressions, which impressions can be multiple per person that's reached. Clicks 178, unique clicks 136, and we had 14 people sign up to a blank landing page that just said ad curation made easy, name, email. 14 people signed up. I mean, that's without optimization. So obviously that was compelling to some people, compelling enough for them to fill out their information and try to get into the beta. Soft conversion ratio is about 10%. That's unique clicks divided by signups. And then, again, with zero optimization. And then the soft user acquisition cost is your 7.14, which is 100 divided by the number of people. That's a soft number, that's very vague, and that's not guaranteed. So you need to keep that in mind going forward. Don't say, oh yeah, my acquisition cost is only $7, because honestly, how many people are going to sign up and put a credit card in? It's a very different level of conversion. So using the reverse pricing technique we're talking about, it's actually $37.33. That's about what the real numbers would be. Now is that realistic? Now this is where you need to consider your business model. For us, it's a software as a service, A/B advertising platform. So you look at competitors. A/B advertising, it has some special technology to it, that's great. But anyone out there comparing products, what are they going to see in value versus us? How much is it going to cost? Well, you look out there and people are charging anything from $15 a month to $99 a month. And in the ad space, no one is interested in advertising for just 1 month. If you're signing up for a product, you pretty much have to do 3 months of advertising for you to get any traction at all. That's just a rule of thumb in the area. So knowing your industry is important when it comes to figuring out if this is going to make sense. So you divide that by 3, and now the $37 is around $13. Now we're definitely in the price range. You get $13 a month for 3 months, and that's your beginning lifetime value of a customer. I'm talking about lifetime value at the actual class. This is just an intro, by the way. So can this make money? Yes, it can. Does it need optimization? Absolutely. We had a blank landing page. If we had used the landing page with actual data and information, we'd get a lot more. So what have we learned? At this stage, spending $136, a couple hours of time, and very little else, we've now validated the idea. We've proven that there is some interest in it. People are willing to at least click on it, sign up for it, figure out if it's worth anything. We've created a value proposition. Typically, on the landing page is where you actually do it. In our case, we kind of did it in the ad. We didn't do it too well, but it still gave us some data. So the value proposition has now been validated to some extent. We now have a pricing point. We know exactly what our cost break-even point is based on actual data, on actual people, on actual costs. We hopefully got some good messaging. It seems like our ad was effective, so that gave us some insight as to how we're going to do the messaging. And most importantly, we have a beta customer list. Now, the key to the beta customer list is that these are going to be your advocates. These are the people that saw the very beginning and are willing to try something new. These are the people that are going to talk about it on social media. These are the people, if you nurture the community, who are going to be your biggest advocates going forward. That will also be in part of the actual class. So, now that we've validated the concept, we spent a couple hours and a couple $100 maybe, we sort of have a concept of what we're doing. What do? Build, measure, learn. We just did this process already. This is a lean startup process. It's very common. I don't know how many people are familiar with lean startup. Anyone? Some people. Okay, so this is Lean Startup's core message. It's super, super valuable if you're doing this on the side because you need to be lean. There's one way or the other, you have a limited resource, so you have to be lean. So using this technique, you're going to be able to go very far. We just did it with the example of determining price and determining the value, and then we're going to go forward from here to the next slide and build it. So we have the concept, we have it validated. We have the landing page validating the ideas around what we're trying to do and the things that people are interested in. So we build the product. Build a minimum viable product. Most people at this point have gotten super excited because their idea is validated. Yes! People actually want this thing. It's amazing. It's great. And then they want to build the Titanic. It's the worst idea ever. There is no worse idea than that. Because you'll get going and you'll spend a lot of time and a lot of money and you'll be in an echo chamber with yourself and your contract or yourself and your partner and you'll build this giant thing. You'll spend 2 years on it. You put it out and people are like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. This doesn't make sense to what I'm trying to do, or this doesn't fit my particular flow of things. So what do? Build, measure, learn. So in this case, there's ways to approach it. One thing that helps for building the minimum viable product itself is getting a co-founder. They can help validate some of the concepts. They can help build up essentially the confidence between the two, because when you go through a startup, you have these highs and these lows and these exciting times and these very dreadful times. Having a co-founder helps. At this stage, MVP stage, I wouldn't suggest doing more than one co-founder at a time because it gets complex. It becomes, development by counsel, and that can be a pain in the butt. The other value of a co-founder is it brings expertise. No one knows everything. Walk into this knowing this. If you're going to build a startup, you don't know everything. You're going to come across things you don't know, and you should find people that do know it. Because if you don't, you're going to make major mistakes, which could cost you your whole company. Another option is you outsource to build the MVP. Now this is a good one if your MVP is something very simple. If it's a service that's very basic and you don't need to do a lot of development, outsourcing can work for you, but it depends on your mix of the time, funds, and skill set. If you have the skills, you can build it yourself. There's a lot of options. And then the hybrid approach is usually what I like to recommend to people because at this point, you have something validated, you're interested in doing it, you probably need a co-founder for all the reasons I mentioned, and you're probably going to need some outside help too, because even with a co-founder, you're not going to cover every skill set you'll need in the startup phase. So, some common early stage mistakes. Stealth mode is typically a mistake. In, I would say, probably 90% of cases, you don't need to keep things top secret. And in fact, by doing so, you're gonna hurt yourself. Actually, by doing this process, you've already come out of stealth mode because you advertise a product even before it existed. So people know about it. People have this idea in their head. It's better to validate than to stay hidden and work in a bubble. Because if you're working in a bubble, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna spend a lot of money and time that's gonna cost you a lot. Building in a bubble. This is, okay, now we're willing to put it out there, we're willing to talk about it, but we're building and we're just, working between us two or me and my contractor, and I keep building in, building in, building in, building in. 2 years later, I put something out and no one likes it. You don't want to do that. Get validation immediately. As soon as possible, get those beta clients using it. Get information from them. Get feedback, because that's going to drive your product development to your customers. Your customers are what is going to drive the success or failure of this company. Ignoring the data. So that's people who put it out there, get things going, and then they get all this data and they're like, no, my gut's right. I know what's right. The people who are telling me this is wrong are not the right way. They're not the right people. Well, if they're your customers, you should probably listen to them to some degree. There is some balance there that needs to happen, but you need to be following the data, whatever the data says. That's why I say constantly follow the data, look for the data, and then validate. And then seeking funding without validation is another big mistake that a lot of people make. I think some people, and maybe not this crowd, but some people think that you can just have an idea, some screenshots, and someone's going to give you $500,000. It's not very common. I would say 9 out of 10 times it doesn't happen. Occasionally it does. I'm not saying it's impossible. It does happen occasionally, but most of the time it doesn't happen. And then the other thing, and this is a legal thing, don't work on it during your day job. If you do, you have a chance of giving your entire company to who you're working for already. And seek out legal advice, because I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, she's a lawyer, he's a lawyer, there's several lawyers. And one of my first advisors was a lawyer too, which is how I learned a lot of the different, like, where you should and where you shouldn't. It's careful. It's a balancing act. And I was lucky enough, he was actually not only a lawyer, but a Wharton graduate with an MBA and had worked for the RIAA and then did a bunch of startups. So I got a little bit of a mix of both worlds with my advisors. That's another thing. I didn't actually mention it. It kind of goes with the co-founder stage. As you start to get something together, reach out to people who you respect in whatever space you're doing. Because they're going to have a perspective that you don't have, and they're going to be able to guide you through things that you don't necessarily even know are there, problems that you're going to run across. Advisors are super, super important, and really the key to doing that is coming to events like this, networking, finding other people that have shared interests or shared, industry experience. So.
Outside of your friends and family.
Oh yeah.
Your friends and family will
They'll
tell
lie
you
to
it's
you.
great.
They love whatever you're doing. Mom is definitely convinced you're a genius. I'm telling you. So don't use friends and family for the advisory roles. So this is, like I said, just kind of a teaser for the LVI educational events, which are going to start, I guess, next month after. We're not quite sure yet. We haven't quite got the schedule, but we will announce it to everyone that's on the meetup. Things we'll talk about there is lifetime value analysis, how to do that. This will help you scale, will help you get an idea of how much money you actually need to build it. How to estimate scalability, so this will give you some projections for growth structure and what targets you need to hit as you go if you're going to be successful, or as successful as you want to be. More early stage data points worth keeping an eye on. Social media, the startup's best friend, I kind of touched on this. It can be absolutely amazing what social media can do for a startup if you utilize it correctly, and if you take advantage of those that are interested in it and you're willing to work directly with them and communicate with them. Nobody loves it more than to have a company they love speak to them as a person. It's amazing the effect that it can have. And then the eternal struggle, and this is a debate that is a debate for a reason. Bootstrapping versus fundraising versus hybrid. I typically lean towards hybrid because that's what I've seen most of the time, so I'm experienced in that, but that doesn't make it the right answer. So that's it for now. I guess we'll do Q&A. Yeah. Any questions?